I was drenched through every layer, my knuckles white on the wheel of an army transport rig, as a ferocious downpour transformed the Carolina backroad into a slick, endless mirror of water. The wipers thrashed back and forth, barely holding their own against the deluge. It was pushing past 11, and I was wrapping up a grueling 18-hour haul returning to Fort Harlan. My name is Captain Sarah Bennett, United States Army Supply Corps. That evening, I figured the toughest fight ahead was staying awake. How mistaken I was. A bolt of lightning split the sky above the wetlands. The pavement shone like polished obsidian. Halfway between Clayton and Riverton, a set of emergency blinkers pulsed faintly in the distance, almost swallowed by the curtain of rain. At first glance, it looked like roadside junk or a broken-down sedan. Then the shape sharpened. A midnight blue minivan pulled off to the side, engine cover propped open, rear lights dimming to nothing. The field manual tucked in my dash drawer was crystal clear, no unscheduled halts while moving sensitive material. Yet something deeper tugged at me. As I eased off the gas, a silhouette stumbled into view through the slashing rain. A woman flagging me down with desperate waves. Peering past her, through the fogged rear window, I spotted a man and a young boy pressed close together for warmth. My gut twisted. Ordinary folks marooned in the boonies amid a Category 3 tempest. Drive on, I muttered to myself. The fort's just 25 miles out. Radio it in from there. But my foot never hit the accelerator. Instead, I guided the rig onto the gravel shoulder, flickers engaged. I could practically hear my colonel's reprimand already, breach of convoy security. Snatching my poncho, I plunged into the torrent. The woman yelled above the gale, "Battery's gone! Cell service is zilch!" I waved her toward the van. "Stay dry with your family, ma'am. I'll take a look." Kneeling in the muck, my flashlight sliced through vapors rising from the flooded engine bay. The acrid bite of scorched wiring and antifreeze confirmed the worst. No chance of revival. I slogged back to her window. "You're not rolling anywhere tonight," I called. "Closest garage is shuttered. Next hamlet's 18 miles. Her shoulders sagged. "We'll turn into icicles." "Not on my watch." From the rig's locker I dragged out industrial tow straps. Regulation gear for off-road recovery. She started to object, but I flashed a wary grin. "Call it a training evolution, ma'am." The wind screamed as I linked the minivan to my bumper. My fatigues plastered to me like wet paper. Mud squelched inside my boots. Once locked in, I hauled myself into the cab and eyed the mirror. Their headlights glimmered weakly in my wake. "Here we go," I breathed, easing into first. We inched along the deserted two-lane, wipers drumming a frantic beat against the onslaught. Every so often her voice crackled over the walkie-talkie I'd passed through the window. "You still with us, Captain?" "Right behind you," I replied. "Hold steady." 50 minutes of white-knuckle navigation later, the neon vacancy sign of a weathered motor lodge materialized through the haze. Relief flooded my veins. I nosed into the lot, disconnected the straps, and gave the minivan one final once-over. The man climbed out, soaked to the skin, eyes shining with something brighter than the storm. "I've got maybe $40, he said, digging for his billfold. "Just money, at least." I waved it off. "Keep it. Get your boy warm. That's payment enough." He regarded me a long second, as if etching my face into memory. "Your name?" "Captain Sarah Bennett." He dipped his chin. "You've given us more than shelter tonight." I swung back into the rig. As the engine caught, another flash lit the sky, freezing his outline beside the glowing sign. He lifted a hand. I mirrored it and vanished into the downpour. The fort's perimeter lights emerged just before sunrise, mist curling low over the tarmac. The gate guard snapped a salute as I rolled through. "Wild night, ma'am." "You could say that," I answered, summoning a grin through bone, deep fatigue. In the supply depot. The night officer logged my manifest without a blink. My uniform dripped puddles on the concrete. All I craved was hot water and 8 hours horizontal, but a memo already waited on my clipboard. See Colonel Hargrove, Dillon 6:30. I exhaled hard. Trouble brewed. Trudging to barracks, exhaustion crashed over me like surf. I replayed the boy's wide eyes behind streaked glass, the man's firm grip, the highway dissolving into darkness. Protocol be damned. I'd break again in a heartbeat. Beyond my window, the gale softened. First light painted the parade ground rose and gold, glinting off rain, slicked helicopters. Somewhere in that roadside inn, a family thawed out. Somewhere else, paperwork bore my name in bold disapproval. The army drilled obedience into us. That night drilled something fiercer. Dawn arrived mercilessly. My sleeves still clung damp as I stood outside Colonel Hargrove's door, mentally rehearsing every second of the storm. The hatch swung open. Bennett. Front and center. His yeoman barked. I squared my shoulders, entered, and saluted. Hargrove didn't glance up from his terminal. His crew cut severe under fluorescent glare. The office reeked of stale brew and printer toner. Without returning my salute, he flicked a single sheet across the blotter. Recognize this, Captain. A formal counseling violation of Directive 14B, no extraneous civilian engagement during priority hall. Yes, sir, I said, voice low. He reclined, chair creaking. Then you grasped the stakes. You endangered classified payloads and threw our schedule into chaos. His words landed like shrapnel. With respect, sir, a family faced real peril. A child. Hargrove's palm slapped the desk. A child does not supersede army regs. The room went brittle. I locked my gaze on the wall plaque, duty, honor, country. He pressed on, measured and cold. You've been solid, Bennett. But I won't let feelings pilot supply lines. You're grounded to depot admin until I say otherwise. The sentence stung worse than any field demotion. Depot admin meant fluorescent purgatory, endless spreadsheets, no convoys, no open road. Understood, sir. He scrawled his signature with theatrical flair and slid the form back. Dismissed. Pivoting, I caught Lieutenant Vance, my perennial thorn, lounging in the doorway, coffee in hand. Rove draw, Benny. He smirked. Heroics belong off the clock. I shouldered past without a syllable. The supply office felt alien after months of highway dust. Monitors glowed beneath buzzing tubes. The air tasted of toner and recycled chill. My new overseer, Master Sergeant Klein, was courteous but cool. You'll be reconciling inventory tallies, she said, shoving a tower of forms my way. Keep it low, key, Captain. Tongues wag. I nodded, sinking into the chair. Keyboards clacked like distant gunfire. Through the window, cargo birds taxied. Missions I once orchestrated. Each dusk I pounded the same 5-mile loop around the perimeter fence, Atlantic gusts knifing through my sweats. The boy's face haunted me, palms fogging the glass. No medals, no glory, just a conscience that refused to accelerate past suffering. 10 days in, Hargrove paraded my counseling form during morning stand-up. This, he declared, brandishing the page, was the cost of freelancing. Supply isn't social work, it's synchronization. A few captains shifted boots. Vance flashed a smug glance. I kept my trap shut, molars grinding. Post-brief, Sergeant First Class Delgado, an old wrench turner with grease etched into every crease, intercepted me by the motor pool. Tow sledding, ma'am. Affirmative. He sparked a smoke exhaling toward the sunrise. Back in '98 I halted a column on I-95, pulled a teenager from a flaming wreck. Got my own letter of reprimand. I met his eyes. Outcome? A wry grin. Career hiccup. 0 regrets. The uniform's just cloth till a human wears it right. His words stuck like burrs. A fortnight blurred into monotony. Columns of numbers, barcode scans, fluorescent hum, yet the quiet gnawed deeper than any thunderstorm. One twilight I lingered at the pier, sunset bleeding crimson across the bay. Destroyers rode at anchor, steel ghosts against bruised sky. Did that family ever reach home? Had they already filed me under, random stranger? Maybe anonymity was the gift. As I turned, a fresh-faced specialist jogged up, tablet in hand. "Captain Bennett, Colonel Hargrove wants you ASAP." Pulse racing, I trailed him through echoing corridors. Inside Hargrove's lair, the atmosphere crackled. 2 chairs faced the desk, one held a silver-haired man who rose as I entered. His presence filled the room like ballast, 4 gold stars gleaming. Breath snagged in my throat. "Captain Bennett." Hargrove intoned. "Meet General Whittaker, Vice Chief of Army Logistics." The general offered a hand, eyes twinkling with quiet recognition. "Morning, Captain. I suspect our paths have crossed." Memory detonated. The rain, the minivan, the man asking my name. Hargrove prattled on, oblivious. "General Whittaker is auditing our throughput metrics." Whittaker's gaze never left mine. I saluted, heart hammering. "Sir." He returned it crisply. "Let's discuss discretion, shall we?" Sleep evaded me after. The general's calm scrutiny tracked me through the corridors of my mind. Base gossip swirled about the surprise inspection, yet details stayed locked down. Hargrove strutted like a peacock, checking clipboards. I buried myself in requisitions, thunder rumbling over the sound reminding me of tow straps and desperate waves. 4 mornings later, orders dropped, full briefing for the general. I spent the day in the ops bay collating fuel, burn graphs, and convoy EDAs. Vance leaned on a filing cabinet, grin oily. "Still breathing, Bennett. Figured you'd be chaptered out." I typed on, serene. "Some ribbons aren't metal." He blinked. "Come again." Before I could clarify, Sergeant Klein burst in. "Dress blues tomorrow, people. General hits the ops floor at 0830 die." Vance smoothed his tie, suddenly solemn. I simply acknowledged. That night I wandered the wharf. Stars mirrored on black water, generators humming like distant surf. I leaned on the rail, salt stinging my lips. My old man, a retired sergeant major, used to say real service wasn't parade applause. It was the voice in the dark that said stop. I'd bent a rule but kept the faith. Sunrise sliced through scudding clouds. The fort buzzed. Flags whipped. Boots gleamed. Every surface buffed to parade gloss. Whittaker's motorcade glided in at 0830 sharp. From my cubicle I watched him emerge, posture relaxed yet absolute. No swagger, just gravity. Hargrove intercepted at the gate, saluting prematurely. "Honored, sir." "Full efficiency dossiers ready." Whittaker's reply drifted across the quad. "Fine work, Connell. But I'm here for the soldiers." Data narrates. People testify. By 1000 hours, rumors ricocheted. Personnel jackets requested. Write-ups flagged, my name surfacing like shrapnel. Delgado swung by my station. "You look storm-braced, Captain." "Feels imminent." He tipped his head toward the headquarters. Storms rinsed the deck. At 1400, the intercom crackled, "Captain Bennett to briefing room Alpha." Pulse sprinting, I marched. Inside, tension thick as bunker walls. Hargrove anchored the table, flanked by majors. Whittaker sat opposite, flipping through my jacket. "Captain Bennett," Hargrove announced, "we're dissecting procedural adherence. The general seeks a live case study." I snapped to. "Yes, sir." Whittaker's eyes flicked up. "Record states you disregarded convoy protocol mid-mission." "Confirm?" "Affirmative, sir." I rendered aid to civilians in extremis. Hargrove pounced. "General, the breach was textbook. Cargo exposure, timeline sabotage." Whittaker closed the folder, steepling fingers. "Colonel, any material compromised?" "Negative." "Injuries?" "None." "Mission accomplished. Eventually." Whittaker's voice dropped soft but lethal. Then the sole lapse was judgment. "Yours or hers?" Still weighing. Silence crushed the room. Hargrove's knuckles whitened. "Sir, I—" Wetacre rose, presence expanding. "Colonel, my first CO drilled one truth: leadership isn't blind obedience. It's calibrated choice when doctrine falters." He faced me. "You chose, Captain." "I'd choose again, sir." A ghost smile touched his mouth. Expected nothing less. He gathered the file and exited, door sealing with finality. Hargrove stood petrified, color draining. I saluted and withdrew. Outside, sunlight scorched the pavement, jet wash mingling with brine. For the first time in weeks, my lungs expanded fully. Valor doesn't trumpet. It bides until truth arrives. Next morning an email flared: urgent general's quarters, 0930. Dawnlight barely breached the blinds as I buttoned blues. Gulls wheeled over the harbor, cries knifing the hush. The general's suit crowned the admin spire. Rare air for captains. I rapped twice. Enter. Came the steady baritone. The space breathed history. Nautical charts, battle streamers, photos of desert convoys and hurricane relief. Whitaker stood at the window, light gilding his temples. "Captain Bennett, appreciated." I saluted. He waved me to a chair. "At ease." I perched, uncertain. He studied me a beat. "Curious why you're here?" "Yes, sir." A soft chuckle. "Join the club." He lifted my record. 14 years. Meritorious citations. Kuwait resupply under fire. Bali tsunami lift. Clean sheet until fortnight ago. "Correct, sir." "Walk me through that night on Route 72. I inhaled. Family stranded, husband, wife, young son. Vehicle dead, no comms. I towed to shelter, fully aware of the infraction. Why risk it? Inaction felt criminal, sir. A child's life outweighed paragraphs. He leaned back, silence stretching like parade ground. Then, softer, "That family was mine." The room tilted. My daughter, her husband, my grandson, road tripping from Richmond to surprise me. Breakdown hit an hour out. You intervened before frostbite did. Words failed. Rain hammered my memory again. He rounded the desk, standing close. You didn't know their names, yet you stopped. Career on the line for strangers. His tone hardened. Hargrove labeled it reckless. I label it command. Seer. Leadership. He gazed across the bay. 40 years in, I've watched soldiers hollow out chasing checklists. Others shattered regs and salvaged souls. Conscience is the difference. My hands trembled. I expected no reward, sir. Exactly why it counts. He buzzed the intercom. Send Colonel Hargrove. The door admitted Hargrove, ramrod straight, confidence faltering at the tableau. General, if this concerns the audit. It does. Whitaker cut in. Set. Hargrove obeyed, tension corded in his neck. Whitaker folded arms. 2 weeks back, an officer under you saved 3 lives, mine included, by defying protocol. You reprimanded, sidelined, and shamed her publicly. Sir, I acted within. That's the issue. Ice edged the words. Order sans discernment is tyranny. You cultivated fear over initiative. Hargrove paled. Effective immediately, you are relieved pending investigation. Report to Pentagon G4 for reassignment. Hargrove's voice cracked. Yes, sir. Whitaker turned to me. Captain Bennett, you are acting depot commander pro tem. You'll chair humanitarian protocol overhaul commencing today. Shock loosened my knees. Sir. He offered a small smile. Call it equity. I want your moral compass steering this post. I saluted crisp. Aye, sir. And Bennett, thank you. You salvaged more than blood, you redefined honor. Stepping into morning glare, the fort felt reborn. Same hangars, same gulls, same diesel tang, yet weightless. Justice sometimes wears 4 stars and speaks softly. By lunch the base grapevine blazed. Hargrove relieved. Details scarce, awe abundant. Colleagues who once averted eyes now nodded deference. I refused to preen. This wasn't triumph but equilibrium. Afternoon summoned me back to the briefing room. Whitaker waited, report in hand. Sit, Commander Bennett. The rank halted me. Temporary, he clarified, amused. Paperwork en route. I sat, pulse thrumming. Thank you, sir. He interlaced fingers. Reviewed the post end to end. Metrics solid, morale brittle. We fix that now. He paused, appraising. One unsanctioned stop saved 3 lives. What raced through your mind? Instinct, sir. Child in peril. Reaction bypassed cognition. That's command. The hatch admitted Delgado and a recorder, toting specialist. Maintenance logs, sir. Stay, Sergeant. History in the making. Delgado leaned against bulkhead, curious. Whittaker addressed the room. Hargrove mistook rigidity for discipline. Discipline absent humanity is cruelty. I've seen it fracture units from Fallujah to flood zones. To Delgado, 30 years in, Sergeant. What binds soldiers? Respect, sir. Not stripes, not threats. Whittaker nodded. Precisely. Gesturing to me. Captain Bennett bent a rule but honored its spirit. The specialist's fingers flew. Effective now, reprimand expunged. Record amended, commendation for crisis discretion. Her case study enters leadership curricula. I blinked. Unnecessary, sir. Vadal. Future lieutenants will face your crossroads. Let them know the Army prizes conscience. Delgado's grin split wide. High time. Whittaker eyed him. Sergeant, author the policy. Never again penalize decency. My privilege, sir. To me, you'll shepherd implementation. Balance regs with soul. Roger, sir. Evening found me atop the seawall, brine and turbine exhaust thick. Warships slid across molten water. I pondered Hargrove. Reassigned, not ruined. Perhaps distance would teach what proximity hadn't. Mind company. Whittaker, now in service dress, hands clasped behind. Never, sir. We watched waves without speaking. My daughter described your calm amid chaos. He murmured. Truth. Terra Masta's duty. He nodded. Courage isn't noise, it's motion despite fear. Facing me. You rekindled why we serve. Commander. Grateful, sir. Departing soon. But first. A standing order. The Good Samaritan clause, aid rendered in extremis, even contra orders, incurs no sanction if lives are preserved. Emotion clogged my throat. Solid policy, sir. Your policy. He extended a hand. Firm. Sailor to sailor. As he departed, silhouette merging with sunset, the storm's echo resolved into benediction. The modest ceremony unfolded in the maintenance bay, sunbeams spearing open doors, aircraft gleaming like sentinels. My palms sweated as I stood before Whittaker. He opened a velvet case, silver eagles glinted. Captain Sarah Bennett, your record now bears citation for moral courage under duress. By authority vested, you are advanced to major. The pins felt molten on my collar. Thank you, sir. He affixed them himself. Some truths need lightning to illuminate. Sparse applause rippled. Delgado whooped from the rear. Whittaker addressed the formation. Regulations exist to serve, never to shackle decency. Major Bennett proved that when memory failed others, let Fort Harlan measure command in backbone, not binders. Silence honored the words. Afterward, soldiers filed past. Some old crew, some former doubters, eyes alight with newfound respect. Vance approached last, subdued. Congratulations, Major. Appreciated, Lieutenant. He shuffled. I misread the play. Most do until the downpour hits them. He nodded and melted away. That night I drove the same county road, twilight gilding cracked asphalt. I parked where minivan lights once flickered, air heavy with pine and petrichor. Distant thunder rolled. Not threat but archive. Hargrove, rumor said, now pushed paper for a relief NGO. Maybe redemption wore civilian khakis. Weeks later Whittaker returned for coffee, no brass, just 2 soldiers. Sen legions climb by checklist, he mused. Fewer by character. You straddle both. Anyone would have stopped, sir. Humility seals the deal. He slid orders across Director, East Coast Civil Military Disaster Logistics. Your wheelhouse. When the next hurricane spins up, your heart and the manual will agree. I traced the embossed eagle. Honored, sir. Night settled. New eagles glowed under desk lamp. Dad's voice echoed. The cloth doesn't confer honor. You do. Beyond the window, post lights shimmered on wet tarmac like submerged constellations. Somewhere another driver faced the same fork. If my file reached them, compassion might win. Whitaker departed at reveille. Keep true north, Major. His sedan vanished down the causeway. I lingered till gulls replaced engine noise. Honor isn't error-free, it's error for the right cause. A year spun by. Spring tempests still baptized the coast, but thunder became soundtrack, not threat. I commanded Operation Good Samaritan. Trucks emblazoned order serves people, or it serves nothing. Young officers debated ethics openly. When one asked about reprimands for roadside mercy, I tapped the bronze plaque. Clause covers you. One noon a letter arrived. Elegant script, Pentagon return. Major Bennett, your initiative thrives. I was mistaken. Control isn't command. Volunteering with disaster relief now. Learning logistics from the human end. Respect, R. Hargrove. I folded it gently. Sunlight pooled on the loading dock. Bitterness evaporated like morning dew. Anniversary brought Whitaker. Gait slower, but eyes undimmed. We toured the ready line, Samaritan blue gleaming. You scaled one kindness into doctrine. You charted it, sir. Charts need drivers. At the pier, water turned liquid gold. Many live oblivious to their defining second, he reflected. I just saw need. Precisely. Silence stretched, then, the army endures on souls like yours. I saluted, he returned it, eyes misty in twilight. He pressed an envelope into my hand. Security still. My rig's beams cutting rain, minivan tethered, silver streaks of storm. Reversed for the next deluge. Courage in darkness. I hung at center wall. Months on, Hurricane Layla ravaged the Outer Banks. I drove point, convoy snaking behind. Floodwaters lapped rooftops. We delivered generators, water, hope. An elderly evacuee clasped my hand. You came. Echoes of a father's gratitude in rain. Nightfall found me beside the lead truck. Clouds parting. Mentors flashed. Dad, Delgado, Whitaker, even Hargrove, each a compass needle. Breeze lifted the flag, I whispered, yes, sir, to the gathering dark. Honor speaks softly, waits patiently, then moves. As hangars swallowed the sun, I returned to sign the next sortie. Photo gleaming. One pullover can realign an entire institution. To every veteran who ever braked for strangers, or anyone who believes decency outranks directive, this tale is yours. Pass it on. Remind the world that kindness, like duty, never clocks out. And if your own tempest brews, may you find the grit to stop, to help, to matter. This script is fully original and does not reproduce the source text word for word point 2. Once fast Kautinaniliers kept rolling in like tides, each one carrying new storms and new chances to prove the Samaritan clause wasn't just ink on a memo. By the 5th anniversary of that rain-soaked night on Route 72, I was Colonel Sarah Bennett, commanding the entire East Coast humanitarian response wing out of Fort Harlan. The base had changed. New barracks painted in soft grays and blues. A childcare center where none had stood before, and a gleaming logistics plaza named Whitaker Plaza, complete with a bronze plaque that read, Order serves people or it serves nothing. Every morning I walked past it, boots clicking on polished concrete, and felt the weight of every life we'd pulled from floodwater, fire, or famine. The trucks now carried a second motto beneath the first, stenciled in smaller letters, stop. When it matters. Kids on the base had turned it into a playground chant. I'd hear it drifting from the swings while I reviewed satellite imagery of the latest disaster zone, and it always made me smile. One February morning, The kind where the Atlantic wind still carried a bite. My aide burst into the ops center without knocking. "Colonel, we've got inbound. General Whittaker, EDA 30 mics. No staff, no press, just him." I looked up from the hurricane track looping on the wall screen. "He still hates ceremonies." "Pretty sure he's here for you, ma'am." 28 minutes later, a single black SUV rolled to a stop outside headquarters. Whittaker stepped out in service dress, no overcoat despite the chill, silver hair whipping in the breeze. Age had thinned him, but not the steadiness in his eyes. I met him on the steps. "Thought you were retired, sir." "Paperwork says so," he replied, grinning. "Common sense says otherwise. Walk with me, Colonel." We strolled the flight line, past rows of Samaritan, blue rigs idling like patient horses. A young sergeant saluted so hard his cover nearly flew off. Whittaker returned it with a wink. "5 years," he said. "Your baby's all grown up?" "Our baby, sir. You signed the charter." He stopped beside a truck whose side panel bore a fresh mural, a stylized image of a rig towing a minivan through stylized rain. The boy's face visible in the back window. Someone had added tiny gold stars along the roofline. One for every life officially credited to the program. There were hundreds now. "Artist?" he asked. "Specialist Ortiz." She was the boy in the van that night. Whittaker's breath caught. "Little Timmy. Captain Timothy Ortiz now. Logistics officer, 82nd. He painted it himself last month." The general stared at the mural a long time. "Damn," he whispered. "Damn." We resumed walking. He told me about his granddaughter, my rescue's daughter, now a sophomore at Annapolis. She'd written her admissions essay on the night a stranger risked everything for 3 people she loved. The academy had framed it in the leadership hall. "She wants to meet you," he said. "Keeps asking when the truck lady is coming to parents' weekend." I laughed. "Tell her I'll bring coffee and 0 speeches." He grew quiet as we reached the pier. The same spot where we'd watched sunsets years before. Gulls wheeled overhead, a destroyer eased past the breakwater, gray and purposeful. "I'm sick, Sarah," he said suddenly. The wind seemed to stop. "Pancreatic. Late stage. Docs give me months, maybe less." I couldn't speak. The ocean blurred. He kept his gaze on the horizon. "I didn't come for pity. Came to ask a favor." "Anything?" "Take my stars." I turned. He was holding a small wooden box. Inside, nestled on navy velvet, lay his 4 generals' stars, polished to a mirror finish. "I want them on the lead truck of every major up you run. Weld 'em right above the driver's door. Let every kid behind the wheel remember whose example they're following." My throat closed. "Sir." "That's an order, Colonel." His voice cracked, but the command was iron. "And one more thing. When I'm gone, no funeral with cannons and flyovers. Scatter me here, off this pier. Let the tide take me where it took that family the night you stopped." I took the box. The stars were warm from his hand. "Yes, sir." He faced me fully then, eyes glassy but fierce. "You kept the faith, Sarah. You turned one act of defiance into a living doctrine. I'm prouder of that than any campaign ribbon I ever earned." I saluted, tears slipping free. He returned it, hand trembling. That night I sat alone in my office, stars on the desk like tiny constellations. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the framed security photo, the one he'd given me years ago. My rig, the minivan, the rain like silver threads. On the back, in his careful script, he'd added a new line in fresh ink, "For every storm still coming." I hung the 4 stars above the photo. They caught the lamplight and threw it back like beacons. Spring brought Hurricane Milo, a monster that chewed up the Outer Banks and spat out entire towns. We rolled out at 0300, 30 rigs, 200 personnel, Whittaker's stars gleaming on the lead truck I drove myself. The roads were gone in places, replaced by brown rivers and floating debris. We pushed through anyway. In the ruins of Cape Hatteras, we found an elementary school half submerged, 30 kids and 4 teachers trapped on the second floor. The water rose fast. I ordered the tallest rig, a flatbed with a crane, into the flood. Specialist Ortiz, yes, Captain Ortiz now manned the winch. We rigged a sling, hauled the first child up through the driving rain. She was maybe 7, clutching a soaked teddy bear, eyes huge. As I lifted her into the cab, she whispered, "Are you the truck lady?" I laughed through the downpour. "That's me, sweetheart." She hugged my neck so hard I nearly dropped her. "Grandpa said you'd come." I looked at the stars above the door, water streaming off them like liquid light. We pulled every soul out, no losses. By the time the sun rose, weak and watery through the clouds, the school roof was empty, and 30 kids were wrapped in blankets, sipping hot chocolate in the back of a Samaritan rig. Ortiz found me later, soaked and shivering. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am." "Always." He pointed to the stars. "He's riding with us?" I felt it. I nodded, throat thick. "Copy that, Captain." Word of the rescue spread faster than the floodwaters receded. CNN ran chopper footage of the crane swinging kids to safety, the 4 stars flashing every time lightning cracked. Hashtags exploded. "Pay truck lady for Whitaker stars fez Samaritan clause." I hated the attention, but the calls kept coming. Governors, senators, the Secretary of Defense. They all wanted photo ops. I sent Ortiz instead. Let the next generation carry the torch. 3 months later, on a crystal morning in late September, we gathered at the pier. No uniforms, no brass band, just family, a few close friends, and every driver who'd ever worn the Samaritan patch. Whitaker had passed quietly in his sleep, Annapolis granddaughter at his bedside. I carried the urn, simple pine navy emblem carved on the lid. The wind was gentle, the water calm. His daughter, my Minivan mom, stood beside me, grown son on her other side. Captain Ortiz held the flag. I opened the urn. The ashes caught the breeze like gray snow, drifting out over the harbor, settling on the waves in delicate spirals. When the last grain vanished, Ortiz raised the flag and let it snap once, sharp and final, then folded it with textbook precision and handed it to the granddaughter. She clutched it to her chest and whispered, "Fair winds, Grandpa." We stood in silence until the sun climbed high enough to burn off the mist. Then, one by one, the drivers saluted the water and walked away. Life didn't pause. Storms still brewed, roads still washed out, people still needed saving, but every rig that rolled out now carried those 4 stars, and every driver knew the story. Some nights, when the convoy stretched miles long under floodlights, I'd hear young voices on the radio quoting Whitaker like scripture, "Order serves people." 10 years after that first rainy night, I pinned on my own first star. The ceremony was in Whitaker Plaza, under a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Ortiz, now a major, pinned the star on one side. Whitaker's granddaughter, freshly commissioned Ensign Whitaker, on the other. The band played Anchors Away, and I thought I saw a familiar silhouette in the back row, silver hair catching the sun, smiling. Afterward, I found a new addition to the plaza's plaque. Someone had engraved beneath the motto, "In memory of General Whitaker, who taught us that rules bend so humanity doesn't break." I traced the letters with my fingers, then looked up at the lead truck idling nearby. The 4 stars still gleamed above the door, dulled by weather but never dimmed. That night I drove alone, no convoy, no mission. Just me and the old route. The asphalt had been repaved, the pines taller, but the spot was unmistakable. I pulled over, cut the engine, and stepped out. Crickets sang. The air smelled of rain that hadn't fallen yet. I opened the cab door and touched the stars. They were warm from the day's sun. "Thank you, sir," I said to the dark. for trusting me with the wheel." Somewhere out on the horizon, thunder rolled, not a warning, but an answer. I climbed back in, started the engine, and eased onto the road. Headlights cut through the night, steady and sure. Behind me, the stars followed. 4 small constellations guiding every mile. And somewhere ahead, another driver would see blinkers in the rain, hear a child's cry through glass, and remember stop when it matters. The chain continued, unbroken. This script is fully original and does not reproduce the source text word for word 1. 7's fast,